Moody's tells the story of how China's property market, plagued by developer defaults, downgrades, and mountains of debt, can affect the country's economy and banking system. Ripple effects have forced the government to support the property sector, as about 30% of the country's GDP is tied to real estate and related industries. The potential spillover impact on China's broader economy is significant. For our Chinese audience, readers can select their native language. Fallout from the struggling property sector can affect regional economic and fiscal revenue growth, industrial activity, and land sales. An extended slide in home sales and property values also affects personal wealth. China has one of the highest rates of total household wealth tied to property, nearly 70% compared with the UK and US at 36% and 20% respectively. In 2022, revenue for many regional and local governments plunged as developers pulled back on land acquisitions and new projects. To help maintain stability, the government tightened policy guidance for the property sector. Scrollytelling triggers a bespoke radial chart that depicts change in home sales. A timeline informs the reader about 6 major time periods and some of the policies that China created to stabilize the market. Readers can explore selected easing or tightening policies that played a key role. Tight liquidity and weak sales could lead to a shakeup in the industry as cash-strapped property developers run into difficulties making debt payments. As of June 2022, 59% of rated Chinese high-yield property developers faced a cash crunch. But the Chinese government has maintained it will not bail out developers that are short on cash. Many developers' credit ratings worsened from 2021 to 22. 50 of 71 property developers' ratings declined, including those whose ratings were withdrawn. This chart emphasizes property developers whose ratings worsened. The financial health of distressed property developers is a growing risk for banks. Defaults are expected to continue as total outstanding loans neared a 10-year high in the second quarter of 2022. To gauge how much risk banks face, Moody's looked at non-performing loans that wouldn't be repaid by a borrower in full or were subject to a late repayment. State-owned commercial banks have the highest non-performing ratio for corporate loans to the real estate sector, and also the largest amount of non-performing loans. Banks remain selective in funding property developers. The year-on-year growth rate of total property development loans hit its lowest point in the past 10 years, while development loans as a share of all property loans reached a 10-year low. Property development loans have typically made up only a small share of bank loans. Regional banks are more exposed to China's property sector relative to their capacity to absorb losses, which adds to credit risks they face from property developers. Around 30% of China's GDP comes from property and sectors in its supply chain. That means some of the developers' bills may ultimately result in losses for banks. Companies along the supply chain, like construction firms or building material suppliers, may also contribute to banks' asset risks. The slowdown in the property market and disruptions from COVID lockdowns significantly curbed prospects for Chinese economic growth in 2022.